That's probably as good a framing as I'm going to get. Right, let's get into it, Craig. Back on horse. Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Today is a slightly different video. It's a little bit more raw, a little bit more uncut. With that being said, we're going to be doing a colour with me. It's not going to be recreating any particular film look. We're going to be using DaVinci Resolve and Dehancer and a bunch of nodes. I was working on a project for free for my wife's company that she works for, as they've just opened a pizza place, but I'll let you see a little snippet from.
I was already trying to do, as I was working as a baker, I was trying to do pala on my own, just like for the idea like to try things, and then you just like coming in, it gets served very quickly.
So once you're in your video editing software of choice, in this case DaVinci Resolve 20, you'll want to navigate to the color panel down here. Looking at the node tree that we've set up, if you want to stop nodes taking effect on your footage, you can simply select the ones that you want to stop the effect on and hit Ctrl D. As you'll notice with this footage, it is quite flat to begin with, and we're going to make it even flatter to allow you the biggest scope possible to get the best creative look you can. So first up, with your raw footage, in this case we shot on a Canon EOS R in the Cinema C-Log gamut. We'll want to add a color space transform. Enabling this, you'll see that within the effects panel on the right hand side, you can see the input color is Canon Cinema Gamut, the output gamma is Canon Log, and then for your output color space, this is where you get more information, it is DaVinci Wide Gamut. You'll then want to set your output gamma to DaVinci Intermediate. You can play around with the different options within the drop-down, however I have found this to be the best one for what I do. You may find something different, however, going forwards with this, you don't want to touch anything else within here. You'll then want to layer up some corrector nodes, and to do this, first off, you will need what's called a parallel node. To input new nodes, you can right click on the node tree space to add node and then parallel mixer. So we'll go on to the trio of key edits to get you the nicest visual look. First up is contrast, so if you drag out from the green dot to your input on the contrast and then drag to the parallel node, and if we connect this up at the end, you'll see that I chose to bring the shadows right the way down with a very, very low value. I also increased the contrast just here, and then you'll also want to effect with white balance. In this space we did shoot without any of the lighting being supplied studio lighting style. It was all what was in the shop at the time, as it was during opening hours we were shooting this. That being said, the lights in the shop were slightly warm, so I took it down with a little bit of a cold colour temperature, and with Canon cameras I do find they lean towards magenta a lot more, so I brought in a bit more green. You then want to add some vibrancy back into your image, as it is very flat at the moment, and to do this we'll add in a saturation colour correction node, connecting it into the parallel mixer, and you'll see the image we have right here. It is pretty high on the intensity, however we can knock that back with the next few nodes. In order to get your creative look, you can play around with power windows. You can do this through these options here, and they've got preset ones, or you can draw out your own with the pen freeform tool. In this case, I wanted to add a little vignette, and when we reenact this, you'll see that I brought down the shadows, brought down the highlights, and inverted the mask. This just gives more emphasis to the character speaking and your main subject. You can also boost the brightness of the main subject and leave the background dark if you shot in a predominantly dark venue or area. Next up, in the background, I did think that the pizzas were a little bit flat. There wasn't much attention drawn to them. It was mainly just him putting the cheese and mozzarella onto the pala in front of him. So I decided to add another power window, this time adding some exposure boost into here. You'll notice that it does brighten it up, draws the eye to the pizzas, and gives you that little bit more element of storytelling within your image. Finally, you'll want to transform your colour space back into something usable that a lot of places use, the likes of if you're preparing it for TV, YouTube, or any other form of media in general. You'll want to transform it back to Rec 709. This is what majority of monitors work at, so you'll use the timeline colour space. The input gamma is timeline also, as this will recognise your initial colour space, and then you'll want to put your output colour space to Rec 709 and output gamma. You can play around with to get the best look that you want, but in this case, gamma 2.2. You can also use Rec 2020 or Rec 2100. These are similar to Rec 709, but are updated for newer monitors. It just depends on the diversity of what you're wanting to provide to. So enabling this, you'll see it brightens the image slightly and tones back that intense saturation just ever so slightly and gives you this pleasing image. You can also add in a final creative look depending on what you were wanting, the likes of going in, adding a corrector, putting it into the line, and then if we search for, let's say, Dehancer, bring that onto your page, select your source, which is Rec 709 now. It looks horrendous with the default. However, if we disable these and then just focus on the film grain, we can dial it in just to give a nice little look to it. You don't want to put too much in, but just enough to give a nice feel to it. You can play around with the type of film that you're using, and then in order to give that just that little bit of glow to it, adding in the likes of halation and bloom, you can see it just boosts the image ever so slightly. You can also adjust the full output to the total impact and bring it down just so that it's a hint and no more. However, in this case, I did find that without it, it was quite a nice image to begin with. For the sake of this colour with me tutorial, I'll leave film grain on, remove bloom and halation, and here is our final look. If you found this video useful, please consider giving it a like rating. If you want to stay up to date with future videos and content from myself, hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment down below as to what you would like to see, and I'll catch you in the next one.